Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. It's a great pleasure, as always, to be joined today by the founder and chairman of IDSF, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. General, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
General, there's, of course, a lot of discussion right now about the Iran nuclear plans and the extent to which Israel will attack Iran or wait for discussions to resume. So we need to hear about that and everything else happening in this war. Please, what can you share with us?
So the coordination between Israel and the U.S. is very close and very tight. Prime Minister Netanyahu held a talk with President Trump. And following this talk, there is a meeting today with the Chief of Staff, with the head of Mossad, with Ron Dermer, with the Minister of Defense. And they're discussing, a very close coordination. My gut feeling is that these talks are not going anywhere. Iranians are completely against any idea of stopping enriching uranium. They're very clear on that. President Trump has also been clear and said there is no scenario where they continue to enrich uranium. So I think we're getting closer to the point where there will be a clear understanding that we need to attack. And the big question is how it will look like. Israel wants a green light from the US, and it wants also cooperation, working together. So I believe that following the discussion between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump, now there is internal discussions in Israel, and every day that passes, we're moving closer to dealing with Iran and its nuclear plan. And we'll see how this evolves. In Israel, there is a clear sense of high readiness. Israel feels that we are assured about our capabilities to deal with them. And there is a complete alignment between the army, Mossad, and the government about the need to deal with this imminent threat and do something about it.
Now, Israel is not being quiet about its readiness to attack Iran militarily. Iran has managed to avoid being attacked for decades and decades now. So why would they, so to speak, end these discussions as opposed to drawing them out for another decade, as they're very good at? Are they almost ready for or inviting a military attack? They have some plan B up their sleeve?
So I think the issue is not really them, it's us. I mean, we did an attack on the Iraqi program. We did an attack on the Syrian program. Why didn't we attack in Iran? And the answer is combined between how ready we were, looking at the army and their sense of readiness to deal with this. And the other thing was that we knew that if we attack Iran, we'll have to deal with a huge war with Hezbollah and Hamas and all these proxies. And now we're already in war anyway. And we managed to deal with this. We managed to really bring Hezbollah on its knees. I don't think there were many people apart of us who imagined that we'll manage to deal with Hezbollah the way we did. And we have been saying that from day one, even before the war, that we're going to really hit them hard. And that there was a lot of exaggeration about their capabilities compared to our ability to deal with them. But we dealt with this. And also Syria fell. And Hamas doesn't pose any more a threat to us now, certainly not talking about rockets and endangering Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or whatever. Houthis have been degraded dramatically. Iraqi militias are out of the equation. And we have mounted a lot of capabilities in the last year. So everything changed. And we changed. They didn't change. We changed. We have the capability. We feel ready. We managed to deal with all their proxies. And now it's time to deal with them. this war cannot end without us completely destroying the Iranian nuclear program. And I think that we are steadily moving towards it. But again, it's a completely different scenario, having Israel and the US together, fighting together and dealing with this together, than Israel dealing with this alone. And it's certainly a completely different scenario if Israel does it without coordination with the US, without a green light. We need the green light to move forward. I'm not saying that if we see that there will be a nuclear capability and the US is not giving us the green light, we won't act. We will. Israel can act alone. But we didn't reach this point. We're not at the point that we need to take this kind of decision. We are at the point that it seems that we can get the US on board. And again, there is all the time talks between the Prime Minister and the President. There is coordination, there is tight coordination between the IDF and CENTCOM, the Central Command. Throughout this coordination, we're able to get ready for the coming future.
And when you look at an Israeli attack on the Iranian nuclear program, what would be the biggest concern in terms of the retaliation of Iran? Is there a concern that they would send a counterattack to Israel? Is the biggest concern just the operational success of that mission, or proxy forces? What would be the impact for people living in Israel throughout that?
We'll have to deal with Iranian ballistic missiles that will be shot at Israel. And this is where we need both the offensive capabilities, but also really working very tightly, closely with American air defense and Israeli defense capabilities to really try and minimize the hits from Iran. And again, this has to do with the importance of working together. If we work together, we can really minimize the capability of Iran to retaliate. And even if they do have enough air defense to deal with it and minimize the hits in Israel, since Iranians already attacked us, and we saw what they're able to do, and we saw that we can pretty much cope with this, this also emboldens Israel and gives us the sense that we can deal with this. When Iranians shot their ballistic missiles, half of them fell in Iran. And the ones that hit in Israel hit, but we saw that what they managed to do wasn't terrible, and we can deal with this. So looking really in the long term, really dismantling their nuclear sites, it's worthwhile dealing a week or two with ballistic missiles, but attacking and dealing with their capabilities. Now, Israel has a lot of capabilities. Not all of them are known, but obviously the US have unique capabilities that Israel doesn't have, like strategic bombers. So we would like to see an attack that is done together and bringing all the spectrum of capabilities to this mission of destroying these nuclear sites. And we have to remember that we cannot only deal with these nuclear sites, we can destroy completely their ability to produce oil or sell oil. We can destroy all their refineries. We can do many things. But I think that Israel will want to focus first and foremost about dealing with these nuclear sites.
Now, when the war first broke out, October 7th and 8th, there was this great concern that Israel would be attacked by Hezbollah and we'd have this two-front war overwhelming. When we look at the facts on the ground right now and potentially having this new attack on Iran, is there a concern that we'll be in this extended war with Iran while still fighting in Gaza, and there's this two-front consideration, or those worries are no longer with us?
No, the moment we took Hezbollah pretty much out of the equation, and also Syria, and the Houthis have been degraded dramatically, and Hamas doesn't have these capabilities, we understand that we're in a moment where the ground forces are mostly focused on Gaza, the Air Force and the air defense will be more focused on Iran once there is a decision to deal with this. And again, it cannot be just Israel. It needs to be a global coalition that will deal with this threat. I think that the Europeans themselves are also very worried about the advances of Iran and what it means to their future. And when Saba says clearly that Iranians are moving towards nuclear capabilities, and this is not Mossad saying it, this is Saba saying that, I think that there is a growing understanding that we need to prepare for an attack, and also enhance dramatically the sanctions by snapbacking from the agreement and imposing, again, very harsh sanctions on Iran.
Now, in order for Israel to have a successful campaign on Iran, obviously there has to be a very robust intelligence gathering operation in Israel. And on the eve of this type of plan, the Iranian state media is reporting that Iran has now uncovered all of these sensitive, secretive documents about Israel's capabilities. What do you make of that back and forth in the media and that Iranian claim?
Well, I don't know how serious it is. I mean, I don't think they really managed to really get serious intelligence. And maybe they bought some, mails or something like that. But okay, let's say that they discovered that, Israel has certain capabilities. Okay, what difference does it make? I don't treat these announcements too seriously. I think that we mainly need to be focused on, preparing our forces and doing whatever we need to do to deal with them.
And before we move into discussing Gaza, because there's a lot to discuss, in terms of an attack on Iran, what would we expect to see from countries like Qatar and Turkey?
I don't think they will be involved in any way. And I mean, Turkey and Iran are rivals. Qatar and Iran have relations, but they're also rivals. And Qatar is all the time under threat of Iranian takeover in the Gulf. So nobody will shed tears to see Iran hit hard in the Sunni world. I mean, we have to remember that the Turks are Sunni, Iranians are Shia, are not really good friends, and the Turks want to be the leading hegemonic force in the Middle East, and the Iranians are on the way. So they're not going to be sad to see Iran really weakened and less impactful in the Middle East.
Thank you, General, and thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for sending in so many questions. It really helps us guide these conversations and share with you what you want to know, what you need to know, and help you become greater advocates for Israel. If you like these briefings, they're educational, please, if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, share. If you're on the live Zoom briefing, share the link with your family and friends so we can continue getting the truth out there. General, if we can now shift to talking about what's happening in Gaza, are you able to provide a little bit of an update about the progress, how much more of Gaza needs to be conquered, and how that is going in terms of really putting an end to Hamas's military control?
So the army is proceeding with conquering Gaza. It's attacking fiercely Hamas. It's controlling more than 40% of Gaza, and in every area that the IDF goes in and conquers, the IDF completely destroys all the infrastructure. And one of the challenges is to find all the tunnels, all the underground infrastructure. We need to destroy it completely. And therefore, in certain occasions, the army goes into houses where we know there are connections from the house into this underground infrastructure. The army tries to really make sure that the house is not booby-trapped, but unfortunately we saw in the last incident a very sad event where 4 soldiers were killed because the house was booby-trapped, although they checked it before. So the army needs to improve in the way it checks these houses to make sure that they're not booby-trapped. But they need to also find this underground infrastructure and completely destroy it, because if they don't, you might have dozens or hundreds of terrorists hiding underground that will wait until the IDF moves in Gaza, and then they will pop out of these tunnels and attack our forces. We don't want to have this scenario. So we need to be very, very thorough. Each area that is conquered needs to be completely cleaned out of infrastructure and terrorists, like we did in Rafah. Everything was leveled down, all the infrastructure was destroyed. It took time, but it happened. The chief of staff has been saying to the forces in the last few weeks, I want to see a decisive win. I want you to move forward, conquer the area, but I also want you to do it not too fast in order not to endanger the soldiers. Use all the technologies you have, drones and robots and bulldozers, Air Force, artillery. There are many, many techniques that help minimize the danger to the soldiers. Until now, just in the last 2-3 months, the army estimates they killed around 5,000 terrorists. So, of course, every life of every soldier means a world to us. But we see that the army is managing to really move towards the destruction of Hamas, also toppling their leadership and changing the way we are distributing the humanitarian aid to weaken Hamas. Hamas is not able to pay salaries, and we see how long it can sustain a fight without being able to pay money or being disconnected also from big part of the aid that is coming into Gaza. The army estimates that within a month and a half, something like that, maybe 2 months, will conquer 75% of Gaza. Now, I feel sometimes when we say this number that people don't understand what it means. So in order to understand, imagine that 75% of Israel is conquered. I mean, this is shocking to think about something like that, right? So it's the same shock on the other side. When we'll conquer 75% of Gaza, it will be almost game over. And then, of course, there is a plan also for the remaining 25%. But we have to remember that the reason why they did it in 2 phases is that in the 25% area, we have the hostages. So the army is conquering all the areas where there is no hostages, hoping that the mounting pressure on Hamas will bring them at a certain point also to be willing to release hostages for a certain ceasefire. But the end goal is the same, destroying Hamas, conquering all of Gaza. The question is, are we able to bring a collapse to Hamas before we conquer 100%? Might be that they'll collapse before, but we'll have to wait and see. I think that in the coming 6 months until the end of the year, this is the time frame where we expect and want to see a decisive win in the Gaza Strip. And a decisive win means reaching all goals of war, destroying Hamas, it's a governmental and military entity, bringing back all our hostages, and making sure that we create the terms that never again there will be a terror army in the Gaza Strip. And part of the process to make sure that never again there will be a terror army is really have an overriding security responsibility over the Gaza Strip, but create some kind of cantonization, maybe self-governance in areas, different areas, everyday policing by clans that the IDF is talking to, that will be a replacement for Hamas. But again, we want to see some kind of policing force. We don't want to see tunnels, not improvised explosive devices, not anti-tank missiles, not rockets. We want to see a small police force that will really deal with everyday life of Gazans, because we don't want to deal with everyday life of Gazans. We would like to see many of them relocated voluntarily according to Trump's plan, as many as possible. But we cannot guarantee that everybody will be voluntarily want to relocate. So what do you do with the people who remain? You need some kind of self-governance in different places, but with overall security, Israeli, any ticking bomb, we can go in and anywhere and deal with this. Completely different scenario from what we have seen since Oslo. Full ability of the IDF to operate anywhere, and of course it will take a long time to clean the whole Gaza Strip from all this terror infrastructure that they've built the last 30 years.
Now, General, it certainly seems that with the new leadership of the IDF, there's a completely different methodology in Gaza. And instead of these limited operations, we're hearing, and you're certainly talking about conquering and military control. How confident are you in this new approach and this new leadership that moving forward, there's really going to be this shift in attitude of staying in Gaza, as opposed to just, we're talking about conquering, but within a couple of months, returning to that status quo and what was?
So the current leadership of the IDF is doing what we have been talking about from the 7th of October, 2023. The first day of the war, when I was asked on national TV, what are we supposed to do now? Where this is going? I said, it's crystal clear. If you want to destroy Hamas completely, if you want to make sure that never again there will be a terror army in Gaza, if you want the hostages back, there is only one way about it. It's conquering Gaza. And this is exactly what the IDF is doing. It's conquering Gaza with a clear mission to destroy Hamas and bringing back the hostages. And as long as the IDF will move steadily towards reaching this goal and will conquer Gaza, will reach the goals of war and will win this war decisively against Hamas. And as we are moving towards reaching this goal, we have to remember that we have Iran, as we said at the beginning. We have to get ready to deal with them also.
General, I want to ask you one final question for today, and let all of our viewers know that usually you join these briefings once a week, but we have a special treat. You're going to be back on Wednesday for another briefing. So all the questions that are coming in now, if we didn't get to it today, we'll cover it later in the week. General, let's talk for a second about Israeli society. It's been a long war, and there's this fatigue that sets in both in society and in the reservists, especially when there's a sense that we're not winning the war. What is your sense right now in terms of Israeli society? Is that fatigue? Is there a problem with the numbers and the morale of the reservists?
So I think that the problem with the reservists is not the morale. It's the fact that, many of them have been in reserve for almost 400, 500 days. And these are people who have families, they have jobs. Through time, it's affecting their everyday life. They're not regular soldiers, they're reservists, who are usually supposed to do 30 days a year, maybe reserve duty, and not hundreds of days. So this is amounting as the war is moving forward. They are doing more and more days. It's difficult. I see it even with my kids who are in university and so on, and they are sent to 60, 90 days reserve. It affects their ability to finish their degree. So it's not simple. So I think it's obvious that at this stage, the country must put a clear timetable and clear goals and win this war. We cannot extend it more and more. Now, I think that talking about, maybe a bit the political side, because there is elections in Israel, possibly next year, if not before, but let's say it's on time next year, and there is elections in the US. I think that there is a growing understanding, both in the US and in Israel, that in the coming 6-7 months, We need to finish the war and we finish by winning. I hear many times people saying, but President Trump is talking about the need to end the war. Yes, but he wants a decisive win, not end the war by losing it. So yes, we need to finish the war, but with a decisive win and not extend it too much. And it's for many reasons. One, of course, is our reservists. The other one is international pressure and so on. It's our economy. There are many reasons why move forward faster and finish the war. And I think that there is this understanding, and this is why there is a clear timetable, 2 months, 75%, and then the last phase of the war. And we are moving constantly towards achieving these missions. Overall, I think the Israeli society is very resilient, very strong, amid the terrible media that we have, and that amid some generals and other former leaders that are discouraging us and trying to say that we cannot win the war and that we're tired and we need to cede and we need to, stop. I think that the vast majority of the society wants a decisive win, and they are resolute and strong. And it's certainly, I think, our mission as IDSF, probably this is the most impactful thing we're doing in the war, strengthening the society, emboldening them, telling them we're going to win decisively, helping also with the army and government to push this towards an end. And I'm sure, not 99%, 100%, we're going to win this war decisively. Amid all the challenges and everything that's going on, this war is going to be won by Israel, and the Middle East is already changing. It will change much more.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your encouragement. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. in Israel. Till then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.